All right, another edition of Riding Home. A lot of movement here for the Georgia Bulldogs. JT Daniels is gone, which was somewhat expected. We've not heard from Stetson Bennett yet, but that's well. I mean, I imagine he's coming back. I think the way it was put to me is he's still making his decision, which sort of seems like somebody who like a holdout during training camp in the NFL. Maybe Stetson doesn't want to deal with some of these off-season workouts, or maybe they're not doing them right now. I don't know. I want to speak for Stetson. I know where I would be in that front, which is not participating in them. I had enough of those in college, but Georgia's getting ready for the 2022 season already. It's January, late January. Dean Legge and Ryan Curley. Listen, make sure you're getting Dogstruction. It's down below. Um, I mean, a lot of people are signing up. As I've said before, we got the cover that's out of the book, and how this is going to work is there's going to be an initial run of these books, and then it's going to take a second or two to get the second run. So you want to be in the first run. Do not miss out on the first run, and we're getting to the point where you're going to miss out on the first run, and you don't want to miss out on this book. Ryan, what's your thoughts as we get, um, the reaction, I guess, of folks around the media? I watched Paul Feinbaum's show briefly for the day after the game, and some of the Alabama fans still were not believing what they saw.
Well, I think their reasoning is that Alabama wasn't completely healthy, so this doesn't really count. The game happened. Georgia
Did
has a
should
ring.
does
That's pretty
did they
much
give the
it.
trophy back?
No, but the delusionals. So
Yeah,
they're out
it
there, and I
happens.
know. And we're talking about Alabama fans this time, not
Yeah,
Georgia
not
fans.
Georgia fans.
A lot of movement. All of it has been expected. I think. I
Yes.
don't think that there's been a surprise. I don't know where you stood. I was pretty sure Nolan Smith was going to come back. And I thought that's a big get for Georgia for him to come back. I think
Y-
this is an opportunity for him to really step it up and be more of a star on the field like we thought he may have been by now. Um, it seems like Stetson is most likely going to come back. That's kind of my expectation. I think he has a lot of reason to come back. I mean, there's a lot of NIL money to be made, and he's already making it since they won that game.
Yes.
Why not
Before
play
they
another
made
year
the
for the
game.
Georgia Bulldogs?
Before
Try to
before they played
repeat.
the game.
It's going to be a good team that's going to contend for a title again. I'm not saying that they're going to win it again, but it's very possible. And winning back-to-back championships is obviously something Stetson Bennett would love to do. And if he comes back, he's most likely the starter, right? I mean, he's your national championship winning quarterback. Who's in his way? If those guys weren't in his way last year, why would they be in his way this coming year?
Well, you don't ever know. I mean, I don't. It sure seems to me like he would be the starter. I don't think there's a certainty. Also, I want to go back to the Georgia thing in 2022. They're not even with Alabama, but they're very close to being even in terms of the betting odds. And I gotta tell you, who's going to beat who should beat Georgia in 2022? Just look at the schedule,
Nobody in the regular season. I mean,
right?
you and I went through this during the
Yeah.
riding home after the parade. We pretty much went through the entire schedule, and just as it stands right now, late January of 2022, the way we're looking forward, it would. If you told me Georgia lost a game, I'd be a little bit surprised if they lost a regular season game. And we have now seen what the script is. If they do go 12-0 in the regular season, the SEC championship may not even matter, and they might just make the playoffs. So I've seen some recent projections where Georgia's predicted to make the playoff again, either a Fiesta or a Peach Bowl appearance, along with Alabama, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. Those are the other three teams that I'm
Okay,
seeing
Notre
on
Dame.
those
All right.
lists.
All right.
So I think there's believers. Oh, I'm blanking on his name, the new head coach. I'm blanking on his name, but
At
there's
Notre
believers
Dame.
in him. Yeah, but he has
Yeah.
his believers. I mean, I don't think you should take too much from, was it the Fiesta Bowl that they played against Oklahoma State? But that was a choke, big choke.
Yeah, it was a choke job for sure. When you look at Alabama's schedule, they're going to host Utah State, a team that's decent. Obviously, should not beat Alabama. They got to go to Texas. Um, I don't see them losing to Texas, but if Texas has something up their sleeve, Now that would be
Well,
the time.
they have a new player, man. They got a new piece to the puzzle in that Ewers kid.
Yeah,
I think he's really good,
true,
but it's just a
true,
matter if he's
true
going to play
freshman
well this season.
quarterback. True freshman quarterback. That's not going to go well for him. Not against
It's gonna be
Alabama.
tough. It's gonna be tough. Not
I
against
think the
Alabama.
tricky game for Alabama, and I don't think they'll lose, is at Arkansas. I mean, when you look at this, entire thing, they got to go to Arkansas. They got to go to Tennessee. They have back-to-back-to-back games with Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Tennessee. They got to go to LSU, and then they play at Ole Miss. This is not as simple a schedule as they've had in the past. Their Eastern foe is Vanderbilt, so not that bad of a deal. They have
Not that bad of a deal.
no, they played the Gators and Dogs in back-to-back seasons, won both those games, but I'm not sure I'm seeing. I mean, their over/under might be 10.5 rather than 11. They got to go to Ole Miss. Could you lose that game? Maybe. You got to go to Tennessee. Could you lose that game? Maybe. Yeah, lost to Texas A&M last year. Arkansas, I'm just saying. I mean, if you lose to an 8-4 team in 2021, you could lose to an 8-4 team in 2022. It's possible, but my guess is you're going to see Georgia and Alabama. My guess is that you're going to see Georgia and Alabama get to Atlanta with not fewer than 2 losses combined, and or excuse me, not more than 2 losses
Not
combined.
more,
Sorry,
yeah.
yeah, sorry about that. And just take it from there. But that it's easy to say that in January.
Yeah, no, it's definitely much easier to say that now as we have plenty of time to make all of these predictions. But
These road
I
games,
think
these
that
road games
I
are
think,
not easy, man. They're playing
yeah,
at
well,
Texas, at LSU, at Mississippi, at Neyland, and at
well,
and,
that's
and
where
at Arkansas.
I was gonna bring it back to Georgia. They've got quite a few road games themselves, and I think the one you kind of mark on your calendar is this could be, a little bit of trouble for Georgia. If you're gonna pick a game, it would be the Kentucky game going up to Lexington. It's not necessarily an easy place to play. They're
It's a
returning
tough
their
place to play.
quarterback, who had a good season. They're
You're,
gonna
you're gonna
return some guys.
you're gonna have to fight your way out of Lexington. I mean,
Yeah.
it won't be the first time that you got to do that. Yeah, the Oregon game, like you said, you think it should be a double-digit win for Georgia, which
Uh,
I mean, okay. You got to go to Carolina. I'm not sure South Carolina has the depth you need right now to deal with Georgia. It is on the road. Got to go to
it's
Columbia,
gonna be a
Missouri.
fun one with Rattler. It'll be fun. It'll be
Well, that's
interesting.
the thing is you've got some guys. I mean, at South Carolina now with Spencer Rattler and so forth. But I'm not sure if we just got a book sale there. I couldn't hear it, but I'm not sure they have what you need across the board to
Yeah.
get you where you
Yeah.
got to go. You got to go to Missouri. Um, they'll host Kent State. You got to go to Missouri. Okay, let's see what Auburn's got. I don't know. October doesn't look like the most complicated thing on earth for Georgia, unlike this past October, I think it was. But then you deal with the Gators down there. They should win that game for sure. And then November is the part where it looks, tricky. I mean, you got Tennessee, which should be a decent team in Sanford. That's going to be hard for Tennessee to win that game. Then you got to go to Starkville and Lexington to end the season. Is Mississippi State good enough to beat Georgia? I,
No,
I don't know, but
I don't
but
think so.
I don't think so. But Kentucky's probably not good enough to beat Georgia either. I'm just telling you though, if that's a night game, which it probably will be a CBS 3:30 kind of spill into a night game, that can be a tricky place to play. Kentucky is as I mean, at this stage, Kentucky's been at least as consistent as everybody not named Georgia in the East, and you got to go do it. I mean, and then they'll host Tech, which would probably be Jeff Collins' swan song. I would imagine they will pile drive Georgia Tech pretty good.
A
I don't
little
see a lot of
surprising it wasn't last time.
I don't see a lot of losses. You could lose to Kentucky, you could lose to Mississippi State, you could lose to Tennessee. Um, you can always lose to Florida in theory. Before that, I mean, Oregon is their toughest game, though. I mean, just on paper, Oregon is their toughest
Yeah.
game. I don't know what that means. Um,
Well, if I mean, it's early, but if their toughest game is a game that I think that they should win by double digits, I mean, they're in pretty good shape. That's just the reality of where we're
okay,
at now with this program. I mean,
here,
should expect winning games. It should be expected, and I think it is now.
Oh yeah.
And then they're going to start to expect championships, and I think they're going to roll in. So,
Well, here let's take a stroll back through memory lane here. And
oh,
Georgia was 14-1 this last season. The only game that was within a score was the Clemson game. All right. In 2020, the only game that was within a score was, well, at the end of the season was Mississippi State and Cincinnati. That's it. Now they lost two games. And then you go back to 2019. This is where they struggled at the end of a season. They had to fight their way past Texas A&M,
hmm
fight their way past Auburn, and fight their way past the Gators. They also had a tight game with Notre Dame, but
and the Kentucky game was rough too.
well, it
That
was
was
a
just a really weird game. It was pouring
well,
rain.
they won 21-0 though. I mean, by
It
I
was just
agree
a
with you.
fight.
Yeah, it was a fight in the
It
first
wasn't
half.
pretty.
No, it was not pretty at all. But you when you go back and you look, you know, in 18, they landslided everybody except LSU, Alabama, and Tennessee and Texas, and they lost those games. I mean, they have not had to pull it out of a rabbit out of the hat in a while. I mean, the Notre Dame game in 17, the Oklahoma game for sure. I wouldn't say the 17 Auburn game was like that. But they typically either strangle people or lose. And the Texas game, maybe well, they lost, but it certainly wasn't a blowout. The 18 Alabama game was a tough loss. The South Carolina game, a double overtime loss. They got blown out by, if you want to call it a blowout. I'm not sure if I'd justify it as a blowout, but it's four scores against LSU in 19. Um, but they, for the most part, Ryan, win games, and they win them by, you know, double digits. I mean, the Cincinnati game this past year, they had to save themselves with a Jack Podnesley kick. There's just not been a lot of games that, I'm running around in the fourth quarter wondering, how much more do I need to photograph of this game? It's usually just over. And Alabama deals with that a lot too. Clemson not as much, and Ohio State not as much. But um, Georgia and Alabama, and I think Ohio State, have separated themselves. They're the only three teams that have played for a national championship in the last 2 years. They're the teams that have recruited better than everybody else. Um, I don't know.
They're the cream of the crop right now. Those three
Right now,
programs with Georgia rising. It's still Alabama. It's still Alabama until Georgia wins a little bit more as far as just who's the best program. I think that's fair to say. I hope that no one's going to freak out about
I
that
don't
one.
know who the best
But
pro. Well, that's a good question. Who has the better
I mean,
program?
hey, is Georgia now? It might be.
Well, you can make the argument for that.
Man, there's a lot of success in Kirby's first 6 years, man. I mean, we're talking about a Rose Bowl,
Yeah.
a Sugar Bowl, a Sugar Bowl appearance, a national championship appearance, a Peach Bowl, an Orange Bowl, and a national championship.
Well,
That's a
Nick
lot in six
Nick
years,
got
man.
there quicker. Nick got there quicker
He
at
did, he
Alabama.
did, he did get there quicker, and he's won a lot more, a little bit more time, obviously.
Sure.
But I mean, if they keep turning it out the way they are at Georgia, Georgia's gonna be. I don't want to use this phrase, but this is the easiest way to say it: is the new Alabama. I mean,
Well, the
but you
thing
kind
that
of get the
changed
gist.
the thing that changed for Nick Saban and company is that their Georgia or Alabama, however you want to put it, left. I mean, Florida crumbled, and
Yeah,
so that time um, was not. Um, that time was a little less challenging for Alabama. Now they earned it. Don't get me wrong, but like the first year, and both of them mirrored first year. Alabama's was a little bit worse than Georgia's in Nick's first year, and then the second year, they both had very good seasons but didn't win the national championship. Third season, Alabama went undefeated to win the national championship at the Rose Bowl. Fourth season, Alabama took three losses. And for the fourth season for Kirby was 6, 7, 8, 9. Kirby hasn't. Alabama went backward in 10, but it was kind of like they were just getting a running start for a double, for the last back-to-back championship in 11 and 12. I think to me, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. So Nick won 3 in his first 8 years. Um, that would mean Kirby would probably need to get rolling pretty quick here. I don't know if I see that happening.
I mean, that means he'd need to win 3 in a row right here
Right,
to match
right.
that.
I think he can
But
win 2 of his first 8 years. But, you know, I, Alabama isn't just the best program in college football over the last 15 years. It's been the best program in college football history, okay? Period. So you're talking about Georgia having 2 more national championships minimum, perhaps 3 more in this stretch of time. And that would be 12, 17, yeah, 18, and obviously they have 21. So um, that would be not not an abnormal thing to say. But Alabama, I mean, there's just no denying to me three, 6 national championships from 2009 to 2020. There's no confusion about who the best program has been in that
oh
time.
yeah,
Who's
yeah.
going to be the best in the next 15 years? Could it be Dan Lanning in Oregon? Could it be Kirby? Could it be Texas if they get their act together? What about
It could be
SC?
Lincoln Riley. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, about SC for sure. I mean, there's a
there's definitely
lot.
yeah, there's a few names in the hat. I think something that I don't know if you've looked at it this way, but I kind of just thought of this. But we talk about how in 6 or 8 years Saban did more, right?
Yeah.
But Kirby came into a situation where Saban and his program existed while Kirby's trying to build that, and I think that
How do
that's
you mean
almost
it existed?
Like Nick Saban and Alabama's dominance existed when Kirby
That's
began,
my
and
point.
that's an
Yeah.
obstacle that Nick Saban didn't have to deal with because
Well, he
he
had to get rid of Florida, which he did, and then Urban Meyer quit.
collapsed, man.
Yeah, Urban
It's been
Meyer
a
quit,
collapse.
and Florida's never been the same since. And it uh, the hardest the challenge that Alabama has got, and Georgia too, is what will the future be with LSU? LSU is the one team to me that if you look around the country, Brian Kelly is as good a coach as anybody out there. He's the best coach that's never won a national championship. All right, and he will win the national championship, I think, at some point at LSU. Now,
You
not
think he's
might
better than Lincoln Riley?
yeah, I do because well, they've never played each other, I don't think. But when you look at what he's done at Notre Dame, Notre Dame has puts constraints on itself that other schools just don't do. I mean, for whatever
Mhm.
reason. And I think for Lincoln, we're about to see he should win out there. He should win out there at USC.
He's gonna dominate recruiting out there, but he's got to fight with Lanning too.
Well, I was just going
Uh,
to say he's got to deal with Lanning, but
it's
at
gonna be a fun. It'll be a fun battle over there.
LSU should always be good. Now they have a coach that is not like the last 2 coaches. It's much more like Nick Saban, although it's not Nick Saban. It, Brian Kelly will give LSU the chance to win the West every single year. Maybe not in 2022, but moving forward, if there is a West, he will give them the chance to be successful. LSU has no excuse the same way Georgia and Florida and Texas don't. They should always win. And the last 2 years at LSU, there is no explanation for those. Period. And you magically lift Joe Burrow out of LSU, and they don't have the season they did in 18 or 19. But he will get them to where they're good. Now it'll be a new reality for him. He won't always be good. I'm telling you, man, what he did at Notre Dame is exceptional for what Notre Dame has been. And in your lifetime, they've never really mattered until these last few years. In my lifetime, people would shut up about them, and they didn't do shit forever. So, um, you know, from Lou Holtz's sort of collapse, if you want to call it that, all the way through until 12, Notre Dame didn't matter. And now we're seeing they do. But it's a zero sum game, Ryan. If Notre Dame's going to ascend and LSU's going to ascend, who is going to drop back? Oklahoma and Clemson?
I very well could see Oklahoma dropping back.
Those are the easy answers.
Those are the easy answers. I tell you what, man, I see the Clemson collapse coming. I do.
Well, I don't
I'm
know if
not
it's going to be a
predicting it per se,
collapse.
but
I don't know if it's
It's
going to be a
not going to be what it
collapse.
was.
Well, it's
It's not going
already
to be.
not. It's already not what it was. I mean,
They were blessed with two phenomenal quarterbacks in a row,
right,
and really great teams around that. College football is changing. The transfer portal is changing things. NIL is changing things. And
right.
it doesn't seem like Clemson's quite changing with the times as much, and that's going to hold them back a little bit. I don't have a lot of faith in them this coming season, just because those are two really good coordinators that you lost both of them, man. And
Well, they
we're
would
not
tell you
sure
Tony
about
Elliott. They would
DJU.
tell you. They would tell you Tony Elliott's not very good, but they had a lot of
What do you think about Tyler Johnson? Is that his name? Coming back
Hunter
to
Johnson.
Clemson?
It's
Hunter Johnson. What's that
irrelevant.
for? Just irrelevant.
I don't think
But
it
I
matters
think
in
it's
any
gonna be a
way.
battle between DGU and that Cade Klubnik kid, man. They're gonna
Well,
open that competition up.
okay. Well, if you're starting a true freshman that's not named Trevor Lawrence,
Then
you're
you
not.
have problems.
Yeah, I mean that's a problem, and their problem is not exclusively DJ Uiagalelei. That's much more than him.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Their
yeah. But
offensive
he
line is
was
not at all where it needs to be. They're going to replace a lot of guys on defense. But look, man, I don't think they're going to lose to South Carolina. But there are some challenging games on here for Clemson, and I would say most notably at Notre Dame. Right now, I don't see them winning that game, and if they don't win that game, that all but eliminates them from the playoff. You've got that game, and because of Notre Dame's situation, but you got Notre Dame, Carolina, Miami, and NC State. Those are well, and I don't think Florida State can beat them, but those are all losable games for Clemson. There are years where we've gone by, and you can't count two losable games. I mean, in 2020, there were not two losable games on their schedule. And now sometimes they manage to lose those games, but there are not two losable. This year, I think they've got four. Notre Dame, you look at them immediately out the gate. They play Ohio State. If they win that game, they may rocket ship straight to the top four, whether they beat Clemson or not. Because there's not a lot of teams on this schedule that Notre Dame's going to lose to. They play Ohio State, North Carolina on the road. They'll play BYU in Vegas, which is basically a road game. Stanford, who they should beat, Clemson, and SC. So they got some challenging games. Obviously, the bookend with Ohio State and SC. But and then, dude, look at the Georgia schedule again. Who are they supposed to lose to here, Ryan?
I don't see them losing a game, man. I don't they're I mean, you put it in a good way. These other programs are just not in the position that Georgia,
No,
Alabama, and Ohio State are in.
no, they're not.
They're in positions to win national championships, and I don't know that some of these other teams are anymore.
Well, I'll
Would you
run.
even predict Clemson to make the playoff this year, man, or Oklahoma? No, I wouldn't.
I think Oklahoma. That's going to be challenging for Oklahoma because
I mean, who's your quarterback?
well, I don't know anything about Oklahoma's situation, but
They
they're
lost two five-star quarterbacks to the portal, man. That's not good. And you lost your really,
it's
really, really, really good
it's
head coach. They're in a bad spot.
it's not good. It's not an ideal situation.
And
But
I'm not high on Venables either. So
when you look at Oklahoma in the first four games, they could lose two of them. They probably won't lose either of them, but you got to go to Nebraska. Okay, we'll just see. And then Kansas State, they can lose to Kansas State because they do lose to Kansas State. They got to play Texas, and they got Iowa State later in the year and Oklahoma State. I don't know that there's a lot of really challenging things there, but I we're going to talk more about this soon. I got people blowing me up over here. Make sure you're buying the book.
Kirby Smart blowing you
A
up.
lot of you are. No, Kirby's busy today. He's too busy to call. He only texts. Um, Nick Saban doesn't text though. So
Oh
as
no.
we know. Thanks for everybody watching. Make sure you click down below to buy the book, and we'll get it to you as fast as we can. Thanks for listening and watching, Ryan. We'll see you on the next Riding Home.